Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Dr. Adrienne Battle, the Superintendent of Metro Nashville Public Schools, here live from Whites Creek, Tennessee. I'm at Whites Creek High School right now, and I'm excited to welcome all of you tonight to my conversation with Holly Robinson Peete. Yes, Holly Robinson Peete. We're going to be talking this evening about autism, about designing inclusive classrooms, about mental health, and about supporting our young people in our schools and beyond. And we'll also talk about Holly Robinson Peete's remarkable family and career. Holly Robinson Peete is an author, an advocate, an entrepreneur, and an actor. Most importantly, she's a mother and wife whose family means more than anything to her. Please join me, Metro Nashville Public Schools, in welcoming Holly Robinson Peete. And I'll invite Holly to say a few words before we start the conversation. Holly, welcome.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Hello, Nashville. Thank you for having me, Dr. Battle.
Well, welcome. We have been so excited gearing up for the conversation today. We're forever grateful, truly grateful for you taking out the time of your busy schedule to have a conversation with us. We have a mantra in Metro Nashville Public Schools to make every student known. And I know our conversation is going to really help propel our organization, our community to do what's best for kids and to be mindful about the strategies that really just help us pursue our dreams, being mindful of the many talents that truly do exist in our schools. So thank you so much for being here.
It is my pleasure. I do want to just add that I did just have some shoulder surgery. So this is not some kind of new fashion statement. This is just a sling. Like, what is that black thing? But I feel great. I'm glad I got it behind me, and I'm so excited to speak to everyone today.
Well, again, we're so thankful. We are impeding on your recovery time, but again, it just speaks to who you are, your heart, your giving spirit. And so, again, we wish you a speedy recovery.
Thank you so much.
So, if it's okay with you, I just wanted to jump in with a few questions first about your career.
Yeah.
Holly, how did you come to pursue acting, and what role did your early years in the industry play in shaping the choices you've made in your career?
Okay, so my acting career, according to my parents, started when I came out of the womb. I was very excited to come into this world. And when I was a little girl, just 4 years old, 5 years old, actually, my father got a job that would change the scope of television. He became the first Gordon on Sesame Street. So I was only 5 and my daddy was on Sesame Street. It was a big deal. So naturally, I wanted to go on. My dad wasn't excited about that because he didn't want me to be in show business. He knew that if I went up there to New York, we lived in Philadelphia at the time, and got on that set with Ernie and Bert and Big Bird and Oscar and Cookie Monster, that I was going to see those lights and be like, this is what I want to do. And he was right. I went up there and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And at that young age, I knew I wanted to be in the business, just the environment, all of it. I had one line, Dr. Battle. I was supposed to say, hi, Gordon, my dad's character's name, but I kept saying, hi, Daddy. And so I got my line taken away from me. And it's so funny. All these years later, that was 50 plus years ago. When I look at me on the show, I've unearthed some footage recently, and I was just doing too much, right? I was just saying too much, talking too much. Nothing's changed. And it was so funny because I say, Daddy, why did I never get to come back on? He's like, you were doing a lot. So that really, but you know what? He was right. I got there and I knew that was something I wanted to do. And then moved to California with my mom after my parents got divorced, and she got into show business. My mom broke through some glass ceilings and became a manager and carved out a beautiful career and started managing people like LeVar Burton and Wesley Snipes and a lot of other people. So, and then I just decided, you know what, I'm going to go to school, get my education. And my father was like, really, if you do that, I will support anything you want. And so I did. I went to college, and then I started going out for acting roles. And that's when I got 21 Jump Street. And that was my breakthrough role.
And the rest is history. Well, coming from an educator, we talk all the time about the many talents of our students, and whatever they are, we're here to really foster those talents, as you've described, to make sure that it's in alignment. Right? All of our students have strengths, all of our youth have strengths, and how we talk about those strengths really do matter to what they pursue in the future. So thank you for sharing that with us. So you've also enjoyed a remarkable, diverse career, from acting to hosting and even philanthropy. How did you navigate these different paths and find success in each of them? I mean, it's amazing very diverse experiences, but you've been met with so much success. Can you talk more about how you've been able to navigate each of those?
Yeah, so I always felt like I needed to have more than one iron in the fire, especially in acting. Those roles can dry up. You don't have a lot of control over the roles that are offered. I was fortunate to have very really cool roles to do as an African American actress, respectful roles, and that was great. But there was a moment there when, acting is a very fickle business, and the opportunity for me to try other things that I felt like I was good at. Being a talk show host, I really felt comfortable doing that. I love writing books, so I write children's books, and I like to sing even, so I like music as well. I sang the theme song to Jump Street and Hang with Mr. Cooper, so that was pretty much the extent of my recording career, but I love to sing. And so for me, it's about being multifaceted, having many streams of income. I think we find in this world that we have to work hard. We don't want to overwork ourselves, but we do want to have several different options to fall back on, as my dad used to say, right? To give you opportunities to do other things in case something doesn't work out for you and you have to change your career path. We all have to learn how to pivot. I think that's one thing that we have all learned, especially in the COVID days in 2020, when my kids were in school and graduating and they were all confused about, like, what do I do now? We have to learn how to pivot. And I think that taught us that. But I learned at an early age to have several different options for career paths, because it really does help you if something doesn't work out. And I think that's really important, a really important message. And my parents taught that to me. And I'm super glad that I was able to do that. As far as having success in all of them, I just, pursued them each with excellence, as if they were my main thrust. I pursued them and gave them all 110%. And I think that's why I've probably been successful in different areas. So that's what I would say to anybody listening right now, to make sure that whatever you're pursuing, whatever area that you're going into, even if you don't know if you're that good at it, just go for it. Really, really reach for it and treat it like it's your number one thing, and you're going to get a great result.
That is excellent advice. Definitely Nashville, MNPS, some nuggets of knowledge here. I mean, you hit on, pursuing everything with excellence, working hard, but not overworking yourself, right? Really being balanced. And you have an extensive 4-decade career in entertainment. So share with us some of the magic, some of the strategies you've employed to safeguard your mental health as you've pursued so many different successful career paths.
No matter what you're doing, I don't care whether it's acting, whether you are a school board member, whether you're a teacher or a student, you have to figure out self-care. Now, this is a kind of new concept. When I was growing up, we never talked about self-care. We just talked about grinding and grinding and grinding. And what we learned is that we really lose quality of life when we don't take care of ourselves. When I was 19, I became a caregiver to my father, who had Parkinson's disease. At the time, he was only in his 40s when he was diagnosed. I didn't know much about Parkinson's at the time, but I did have to sort of take a little pause in my college career to take care of my dad. He would not let me drop out because he was too education minded. Like, it was very important to him that I graduate from college. He didn't want to get in the way of that. But what I learned being a young caregiver at 19 was how important it was that even when you're taking care of someone else, how important it is to take care of yourself. And I think self-care and mental health care and wellness, mental wellness, is something that we're focusing on now. And I love talking about it because, again, when I was in school, or even when I was coming up in my career, yeah, I would maybe go take a little vacation here and there. But as far as really taking care of my mental health and what that meant, not being afraid to go to therapy to explore whatever issues I had, meditating, connecting with faith. All of these are forms of health, self-care, which means healthcare. And when you're coming up in a stressful environment, wherever you live, whatever's going on in your life, it's important that you have the tools to discover what helps you mentally and emotionally, to stop down and take that time and figure out what works for you. For me, it was meditation. I love meditation and yoga. But it's also just going to the beach or just being near the water, I found calmed me down. I also use a lot of apps. We didn't have those coming up either. But, they have all these great apps now where you can, put on an app and then say, what's your issue? And then you say, well, today I'm stressed because of X, Y, and Z. And there's a meditation for that. So we have a lot of options and we need to use them.
Yes, things have definitely evolved over time when we're talking about mental health, right? And as you mentioned, it's not always been that way, that we could talk about the things that we're struggling with, and definitely not having the access to or the ability to access resources to help us all really manage. So like you are just like spot on this evening. You've spoken a lot about the importance of family. I absolutely love that you are a wife, you are a mom, you are getting it all done. The question is how? How do you manage to balance a busy career with being a dedicated mom and wife as well?
Well, first of all, I fake it just like the rest of us. Like, you got to do that. You have to continue to never let them see you sweat. But at the end of the day, I just really have been blessed with a great group, a family unit that is super supportive of everything I do. That really gives me just so much love and support, and not just my family unit, but my friends. I think it's so important to surround yourself with people who lift you, people who give you love, people who want to see you win. Like, that's important. And it doesn't have to be family. It can be, chosen family. But I think that's really, really important to have that, the people around you, have a good team around you. That's probably the way that I've gotten through so many different situations. But also give yourself a break, right? Pat yourself on the back. And if you had a hard day, or if you didn't, balance everything in one day or get to your to-do list, it's okay. You can start again tomorrow. I think we are so hard on ourselves because we watch other people we think that are surviving and thriving and killing it, but they have just as many issues as you do. They struggle in their own way. It doesn't matter how much money they have or how many resources they have. We all have our issues, and we all have ways that we can conquer and support ourselves. But at the end of the day, I don't know if there really is true balance. I have good balancing days and bad balancing days. And I focus on the good, and what I didn't get done, I give myself a break. And I didn't come to this immediately. I used to beat myself up about not getting everything done. I'm a little bit of an obsessive Virgo mom and wife. So I'm always doing the most, and everything got to be in order, or I get, crazy. But I've really learned to give myself a break. I'm, at a big age right now, and I feel like I've really learned the wisdom of giving yourself grace. And that is so important.
Oh, you are uplifting us today. Just a reminder to give yourself some grace. I mean, you will have great days. You also have days that you have to push through a little bit. And I know I often talk about having a support system, and I'm glad you uplifted, family, but also friends, and a lot of times even your colleagues, just folks you can turn to that will keep you uplifted, that will check in on you. And make sure that you're doing okay. So thank you for inspiring us around that today and reminding us how important it is to give yourself some grace while you're in pursuit of that excellence. So very well said. So very well said. So I know you get questions on this direction in this area all the time. I'm going to bring your husband, Rodney Peete, into the conversation. You all have been married for over 2 decades, which, quite frankly, is a rarity in the entertainment industry. What do you think is the secret to maintaining a strong, lasting relationship? Because here at MNPS, we talk about relationships matter. They really do matter to our ability to being able to thrive. So give us a little bit of your secret sauce.
So our secret sauce, I would say, just like a lot of people's secret sauce, is communication. I know it's so cliche. You hear that communicate, communicate. But if I don't know what you're thinking, you don't know what I'm thinking, how are we supposed to push through on anything? And just really a commitment, a commitment to support each other. They say marriage is 50-50, but some days marriage is 80-20. Some days I only got 20% to give, and you might have 80. How do we get to 100, right? What you got today? So that's sort of a strategy that we've been doing, to be together for 30 years. We're married 28. And like you said, in show business, it's kind of dog years, right? It like feels like 150 in showbiz years, because it is hard to make showbiz marriages work. It's hard to make any marriage work because you really do have to work at it. So I just say commitment to working at it, commitment to lifting the other person up when they're down. And then we do something kind of I was going to say unorthodox, but it's not really that unorthodox. We call it the 20-second hug. So what that is that if you're in a conflict or you're fighting, whatever you want to call it, and the other person can call for a 20-second hug at any point. Now, this can be frustrating because when you're trying to make your point, you're really coming at somebody. The last thing you want to do is stop and hug somebody. But when we do that, what I found for Rodney and I is that ceremonially something happens when your bodies are together and you just quiet for a minute. When you get to 15, it's a little hard to get to 15. You gritting your teeth like, oh, 10, 11, 12. But when you get there, there's something that kind of diffuses the conflict. It almost always works for us. And so I feel very good about that strategy. We don't use it a lot, but when we do, it definitely works. So y'all out there, try the 20-second hug and see if it works for you. Sometimes, you just need a moment to just stop down, breathe, and figure out if what you're arguing about is really that deep or not. It's hard when two people who are passionate get riled up and you want to be right. And Lord knows I'm always trying to be right. But when you stop down for a minute, I find you get a different perspective. Those are just a couple little ingredients to our secret sauce. But at the end of the day, it's really about mutual commitment and staying on the same page.
I love that. And if I can have your permission to leverage the 20-second hug, both in my personal life and my professional life. So Nashville MNPS, when you see me coming, you know what's going to happen. My only question is who's counting that 20 seconds? So it could be a quick 20 seconds or it could be a long 20 seconds.
Listen, if you get to the number 20, you're good.
You just got to make it to
there. Yeah.
Just push through. Thank you for that. So Holly, you have a son with autism and you've been open about the challenges and the joys that come with it. How has being a parent to a child with special needs shaped your perspective on life?
Oh, it has completely changed me. So when I had my son RJ and Ryan, his twin sister, so I had twins from the start. So that was already kind of jarring to be a rookie mom and be with twins, right? I was working on a TV show. My husband was playing football. It was a really beautiful time, but very busy and kind of hard to manage. I mean, I look back in those days, I'm like, how did I get through that? Because I was doing a lot and then trying to raise these kids. But when I noticed RJ, something was different about RJ. I noticed that he wasn't making eye contact with his twin sister. He was walking up on his tippy toes. He wasn't connecting with me as much. And his language was delayed, speech was delayed. So I was noticing a lot of things. And I kind of knew it when he was 2, but his pediatrician at the time and my husband, a lot of people were just in denial. Oh, don't compare him to his twin sister. Boys are different than girls. Like it was there was a lot of pushback on my gut feelings. And I still, to this day, all these years later, and the boy is, a man now, he's about to be 26. I'm still mad about that 1 year that I didn't get that early intervention, because the key with the special needs or someone with any kind of developmental disorder is that early intervention is so key, and early diagnosis. And what happens is, a lot of times, certainly in Black and Brown communities, I've noticed, we get our diagnosis a little bit later than other communities. And I think it's very important that we, as a community, encourage each other to get early intervention. And if you have a loved one, or to intervene. And I know it can be tough, because some people can be in denial. My husband was. But the earlier you can get intervention to your child, or to a child that you love, the better they'll be able to cope with this world. I always say that I wouldn't change RJ for the world, because he is the most exceptional, amazing kid. But I would always try to change the world for him, because the world doesn't understand our kids, and it can be a dangerous place for them. So we have to, as moms, as loved ones, as Team RJ members, like, we have to fight for our kids. And oftentimes in our communities, we tend to shy away from mental health issues, and shy away from developmental delay issues. And so when RJ was diagnosed, I told my husband, I said, I want to spread this word, because I have this platform. And I know that when we got our diagnosis, I didn't have anybody to call. I didn't see anybody talking about autism out loud. I didn't see any books about it. So we wrote some. I just didn't see it. And I knew how important it would be to see a family dealing with this and see some success, right? It would give some hope. So we did a couple reality shows. We talked about RJ's diagnosis and his autism, and we followed his journey. And now he's working a lot of things they said he would never do. He's driving. He's doing a lot of amazing things. But there are a lot of families out there whose children never do get language, and don't, have as good of an outcome. And so that's why we have our foundation, because we want to try to help those families as well. And we knew that it was important to continue this work in the community.
Well, we are just so proud of RJ and that successful journey, and knowing that he's thriving right now. Thank you for sharing with our community the need for early intervention. I definitely want to pick your brain around some of the strategies that you've seen be successful for you and for your son and your family. We are just a learning institution. We're a learning community. And so we're always just open to hearing what we can be thinking about as well, to make sure that we're supporting all of our young people so they can thrive and have a successful career, just like RJ. So, and I also want to talk about the book at some point.
Good.
We definitely have to go there. So can you discuss some of the specific programs or initiatives your foundation has launched to support individuals with autism and their families? And if you can just take a moment and tell everyone who's listening in just a little bit about the foundation itself, and then some of those specific programs and strategies.
So when RJ was diagnosed with autism when he was 3 years old, a lot of people think I got up the next day and we started Holly Robinson Foundation, and then we were off and running, but it took a while. So I want to say that when you get this diagnosis, oftentimes you can go into denial. It's a little bit of grief that you're exploring, because you didn't expect this diagnosis. You didn't know how to navigate it. I mean, nobody gave me a welcome to autism handbook. I didn't know really much about autism at all. So it took me a while to go through the steps of figuring out what this was and what it meant to our family before I could get out there and help others. But once I decided that I wanted to go on the journey to do that, it was very important that we help these families, because again, we just didn't have a lot of hope, and I wanted to provide that for others. But some of the strategies, first of all, obviously, is getting the diagnosis. And oftentimes what happens in certain communities, there's an inequity with services, right? So in certain areas and neighborhoods, it's easier to get resources and get a diagnosis. So often you hear, get a diagnosis, get early intervention, but what does that look like? And for so many families, they're struggling, and there's waiting lists, and getting a diagnosis is expensive, and the therapies are expensive. So this is something that is not, so it's easy to say and not so easy to execute. So at Holly Rod Foundation, we help families get their diagnosis. We help them along the way with resources. We help them find therapies and things that they can do to help their child, and we help navigate that journey for them. We also have different programs like Jump Night with RJ, where we shut down a whole trampoline park, and RJ comes and everybody jumps, because jumping is one of the ways that he copes with his sensory overload. So that's what happens when a child with autism can get overloaded and they don't feel good in their bodies. Sometimes they need to jump that out or do certain other things. Sometimes you'll see them like flapping or stemming or twirling, and that's all a way to get their body comfortable. And so we do Jump Night with RJ. We also shut down aquariums all over the country. Aquariums were a place that I knew I could take my son and he could feel good in his body. There's something about the water, the fish. It's just a very sensorially, even if you don't have autism, I mean, it's just like, it's very calming. So we have that. And one of my favorite programs that we have as well is with American Airlines, and that's called It's Cool to Fly American. And what we do is we take families through the whole airport experience. Some of the most challenging moments I had with my son have been on airplanes and in the airport. I mean, people just were not kind. They didn't understand what autism was. If you told them, they say, how can you control your child? I mean, I had to really try to control myself, because people were a little ignorant, and I just chalk it up to the fact that they didn't know. I didn't know what autism was. So I tried to treat it with kindness. Sometimes I failed. But at the end of the day, on a plane, it can be really challenging. And Holly Rod Foundation teamed up with American Airlines to provide this sensory experience through the airport. So they go through check-in. The TSA was always really hard, because they're yelling at you like, do this, put this there. And for a kid with autism, that can be overwhelming. And then get to the gate and get on the plane. And what we do is we simulate a takeoff. We get on the plane, and some of the kids get all the way to the plane and can't quite get on, and that's okay. But it's a great experience to help families get this opportunity to have a trial run at it. So I love that. And then another program that we do that I really love is our job program. So RJ has a job now with the Los Angeles Dodgers baseball team. It's a dream job, and I still can't believe he's in his 8th season now. It has brought him purpose and a sense of belonging. It brought him friends. He never had friends growing up. And so it has been amazing for him. And so Holly Rod Foundation has worked with other corporations like Cigna and like Outback Steakhouse and other corporations, Steak 48 Steakhouse, CVS, other places and encourage them to hire our kids, because sometimes having someone who's neurodiverse in your workforce can be a really, really good thing for your bottom line. So our job training programs have been something I'm really super proud of, and we will continue to do that. We have a place called RJ's Place, where we support families with support groups, right? With counseling. Autism impacts the entire family, the siblings, the moms and dads have issues they're dealing with. And so we try to do a really holistic, full family approach. One thing I just want to say, though, especially when it comes to school, so there's this thing called IEPs, which I'm sure a lot of people watching this will understand what they are, and they can kind of strike fear in you because it's a little scary. But I want to just give encouragement to families who are experiencing and having to deal with an IEP for your child, getting this individualized educational program together, and you have to get advocates sometime. I just want to give you a shout out for having to deal with that and dealing with it with courage and taking deep breaths, and just thank you for advocating for your child. Oftentimes when we deal with IEPs, we're not always given the services that we think our kid needs, and we have to fight for those. But I know it can be stressful, and I just want to encourage you to stay the course, to continue to advocate for your kids, and to breathe through the process.
Again, just great nuggets and inspiration for our families. I want to echo what Holly just shared. We are here to support you through that process. We want what's best for you and your family. We have a phenomenal team of leaders who stand ready to support, because it can be an intimidating process. It can be a very intense process as well. And families know, community know that you have leaders here in Metro Nashville Public Schools who want to support you through the IEP process, the individualized education plan, if that is what the need is. We are ready. We're eager to support in that way. Holly, again, you've hit on so many different areas. One, first, a plug. So the Los Angeles Dodgers has a graduate from Metro Nashville Public Schools, Mookie Betts, who's on the team. We're so proud of him. He is representing our school district and our city well. So thank you for mentioning that. And where RJ is, we often tune in. So
yes,
we're rooting for them.
And by the way, and Mookie has been one of RJ's biggest advocates. We just did a huge appearance segment we're doing for HBO Real Sports, and they interviewed Mookie about RJ and what he means to the clubhouse. I'm always thanking Mookie and the players for accepting my son. And they're always coming to me saying, do you know what he does for us? And how what joy and he brings to us in the clubhouse. So we love us a Mookie Betts. He's just a phenomenal individual, obviously an amazing athlete, but even a better man.
Well, we are MNPS proud right now, hearing that and knowing that he's connected in the work and being such a great figure and role model for the young people there, but also the young people just all across the country. I can't even just say Nashville, a good representative and a mentor for our young people. So let's talk about, so you talked about that airport experience, and, you know, there's all these perceptions and just narratives around young people and adults who are living with autism. But I'm curious on if you've seen the public's perception of autism change, particularly since your foundation began its work.
Yes, and you know what? I don't mind patting myself on the back and saying that I think we did bring a lot of, I don't mind doing that because I want to encourage others to do it. I don't do it so anyone will give me accolades, but I just really remember very specifically looking and searching for advocates and trying to find people. Now, I knew people in show business who had kids that were on the spectrum that weren't comfortable talking about it publicly. And that's okay. Not everybody can do that, right? But I do have a specific set of skills for communicating, and my husband says, you know, you got a big mouth. Sometimes you got to use it for good. I took that as a compliment. So where the way I look at it is that, you know, I have seen an uptick, and I like to think that I was that our family was part of that. But more than anything, we still have a long ways to go. Right. And there are other areas of the community that we still have to educate. And one of them is law enforcement. It's very, very important that we have law enforcement understand what autism looks like in the community, and have more community policing, so that, you know, you can know a child lives here who has autism. If you see him outside, how to deal with him, so that we don't have very, you know, tragic outcomes. That's another area that Holly Rod has really tried to help. I remember just in our neighborhood how my son liked to walk up and down the street a lot. And, you know, he's a quirky kid. So he's a grown man now. I can stop calling him a kid, but he's quirky, right? He walks up and down the street. He wears a hoodie. He likes the way hoodies feel on him. He wears his headphones. And I have approached, you know, neighborhood cops and say, hey, that's my son. If you see him, this is who he is, you know, and he's not problematic, or he's not anything. And so this is what we need more of. We need law enforcement to know who our kids are in the community, and to understand how to approach them and how to deal with them. I think that's really going to go a long way as well. But I have seen so much change. So I'm going to focus on the positive. From the time RJ was diagnosed back in 2000 to, you know, all these years later, it's amazing. Just even having a conversation like this. I mean, this is a great change. And I didn't ever remember hearing conversations about IEPs, or having you say, you know, something so positive about it, about, you know, we're here to help you and we're here to support you. My experience was different, you know, even with the resources I have, and okay, I'm, you know, my husband's a football player, I'm an actress. I still wasn't really seeing the support with these programs in the LAUSD. And so I see that now more. And I think that's really good, especially for someone who's just getting the diagnosis or for someone who has a school age child with autism in a special needs classroom.
Yeah, yeah. So, so important. So, speaking of the school age students in classrooms, I mean, what advice does your foundation offer to educators who want to make their classrooms more inclusive for students with autism?
Oh, you know what? I just say to to really bring in materials, books, not to plug my own, but bring in books that, talk about what autism is, to have really good conversations about not just autism, but other special needs and be inclusive. Have conversations about inclusivity because inclusion is everything, right? I feel like when my son was included in his classroom, which wasn't necessarily a special needs classroom, when he got into elementary school later, he was in a special needs classroom earlier, and you were able to model up. You were able to be around kids that were neurotypical, if you will, and like the experience of having a kid in the class who was different wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't something you made fun of. It wasn't something where you bully somebody, but you learn from that child and you learn about how to accept all children. And it's a very good thing. And I think teachers and educators, one of the reasons why we wanted to write these books was because we wanted to be able to say, hey, get this book, you can read it in class. And so our books, which I know you said you would get to, my brother Charlie and Same But Different, and now Charlie Makes a Splash, and even Rodney's book, Not My Boy, which really talks about fathers and autism. These are books that we wanted to write to help educators explain what autism was in the class at a very young age, with the exception of Rodney's book. His is more for adults, but ours were children's books. And we wanted kids to learn early about what autism was so they didn't start to develop a stigma and they could understand, what it is. It's, by the way, not an easy thing to understand. It's a spectrum disorder, which means it could look like a lot of different things. So it could be a child who's nonverbal and who really has really difficult time communicating, or it can be a child who's highly, highly verbal, but can't look another child in the eye and make a friend, socially disconnected. So it can look like many things. And the more we know about it, the more we can help and be inclusive and compassionate.
Well, you brought up your books, so I'm going to go there because it's important to know what our resources are and the thoughtfulness behind your books. And I opened up with explaining that you are an author. So talk to us a little bit more about your books, your inspiration there, and what you've seen kind of in the empowerment of these books, this text getting in the hands of students, of young people, parents, advocates. What have you seen kind of transform or come out of the impact of your books in the hands of those who can most benefit from them?
Well, books are just so powerful. They're just so powerful. We all know there was that one or two books that when we just remember coming up and being little and hearing that book. And to this day, when we see those books, we're like, oh, I used to read that all the time. And, I used to love Dr. Seuss. And then my dad, being from Sesame Street, he had all these Black authors, young Black authors like Stevie and the book Stevie and so many great books that were written by Black authors and that weren't really getting the shine that some of these other books were. But it's so important to have those books. So what if a book that you read early that touched you was about a kid with autism? That is going to help you as a young person develop into a more compassionate young person because you will have learned from that book. And then even if you have someone in your class who has autism, I remember having someone in my class being young when I was a little girl that had autism, but I didn't know what autism was. And we never identified it. He was just sort of that odd kid. But we accepted him and loved him and everything, but we never gave him that shine or gave him or really understood what it was. But now, all these years later, we know what autism looks like and we have the ability to do that. So the books, I think, have really helped us open our eyes to what autism looks like and what it can look like. And then what I really love about my brother Charlie is that it is one of the first books from a major publisher Scholastic with two African American kids on the cover. And so I think not only are we talking about kids with autism, but also kids who kids of color with autism. And I just think that, checks off a lot of boxes as far as the understanding of the intersectionality between, special needs and being a minority. I think there are some things in there that are that cross over that are significant and is important for all of us to know. But I'm so thrilled to have these books out and so excited, mainly because they're co-authored with my kids. So the first book, My Brother Charlie, was co-authored with my daughter Ryan, and is written from the perspective of a sibling of a young boy with autism. And then later on, really like 12 years later, we wrote Charlie Makes a Splash, and it's a companion piece to My Brother Charlie, and that's co-authored by RJ. And this is important because what I've found just watching RJ's journey and meeting so many young people with autism and watching their journey is that they like to advocate for themselves. And a lot of times they get very sick and tired of people talking about them and around them, but they don't get to sort of be part of the conversation. And there are so many ways that they can communicate, right? Even if they're nonverbal. So co-authoring my Charlie Makes a Splash with RJ, which just came out last year, was an absolute joy. And so super excited about that. And the other book is called Same But Different. And that was co-authored by both myself and the twins, Ryan and RJ. That was more about middle school, a little deeper, because that was during the time when there was some bullying going on. And we opened up about how the middle school experience for him was a challenge. So that's also another one. But, we didn't see these books when you got the diagnosis. So we were very determined to continue to get this information out and to write them. And I'm very proud of the family effort that we did with these books.
I love that. So MNPS, there is a test coming up. You have to purchase and read the books that have been shared with you today. You've been seeing some things scrolling across the screen just to remind you what's available. This is a knowledge bank. And again, we have a mantra of every student known. We are committed to making sure that all of our students are known, that they're cared for, that they're valued, that they're supported, and that they're on a path towards success. So we didn't talk about this in advance, and it's perfect. I mean, the message, the advocacy around all of our students. So Holly, thank you for that, and the co-authoring opportunities with the twins who are adults is amazing. So one other question for you. In Metro Nashville Public Schools, about 16% of our exceptional education population has a primary disability of autism. So what advice would you give to parents and educators on how to best support students with autism?
Oh boy. Well, the first thing that I do is explain to any, I talk to a lot of newly diagnosed families and try to counsel them because, again, I didn't have a whole lot of resources to pull from as far as talking to people. So I do like to take that time to counsel them. And what I tell them is to build a team around your child. And I mean a team, I need you to pull from all areas. Sometimes it's not always family. Sometimes family doesn't understand what autism is, or they just don't get it or whatever. So you find people who do. They could be in your church. They can be in your sports team. They could be from a coworker. They could be somebody else at school, a trusted teacher. Keep recruiting, constantly recruiting people for your child's team, because these are people who will help them along the way when it comes time to other hurdles, right? School, high school, even college. There's ways they can go to college as well. So just in life, I feel like our kids need, a village. And I think it's important to cultivate that village for them. So that's the number one thing. I mean, I don't know where I would be without Team RJ. My best friend is on it. We've got one of his teachers, big brothers, and we have mentors. So that's important. And that advocacy is so key, right? As parents, we have to roll up our sleeves and advocate. I used to say, if they don't roll their eyes when they see you coming, then you're not doing your job. And what I mean by that is you just really have to advocate. You don't want to be the one that they go, oh, here comes Miss So-and-so. But you do kind of want to be that person because they know you mean business when it comes to advocating for your child. You are his best option for success. You are his best chance at a really good place in life. The world is not set up to support our kids. So we have to force that on them, and we have to make sure that they're ready for our kids. So the biggest piece of advice, again, I'll say it again, is team building for your child, and finding people that are going to help him or her every step of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is just phenomenal to know that we have an advocate in you and your family, that's standing ready to support families everywhere across this country. It really does make a difference in bringing awareness to and advocating on behalf of all of our young people. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Holly. I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you a bit tonight, and learning about your family and the causes that inspire you and move you to action every day. I mean, it makes me think about what I say yes to every day. And I encourage my entire team to think about that. What do you say yes to every day? What do you stand for? What inspires you? What are your passions? I'd love for you to close, Holly. Close us out with some information about your foundation and any final comments for everyone who's joined us for this conversation tonight.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Dr. Battle, for your compassion and for the work that you're doing. I mean, we could clone you 1,000 times. That would be amazing, because we need educators like you who are compassionate, who care about certainly all students, but certainly the special needs students, the special education students who really need advocacy, not just from the parents, but from the schools. And that is so important. So thank you for that. That is so key. You know, I just want to close by saying that you're your child's best advocate. You know what they need, you understand that, but you want to spread that information so there are more people who know. You don't have all the information hoarded for yourself. Just continue to advocate for your child. Continue to take care of yourself. Self-care is so key. You know, these kids can't raise themselves. You got to be there for them. So you have to take care of you. Find that time, whether it's an app, 5 minutes in the day before you get up. Meditate before you wake up about what you want from the day. If you don't get it all in, it's okay. You got another day to try it again. But at the end of the day, take care of you. As parents and caregivers, we put ourselves at the back of the line too many times. So that's very, very important. And just, stay. This is what I say when it comes to advocating for your child. Just stay prayerful, of course. Stay prayerful, hang on to your faith, but also really, really hang on to your advocacy and team build. Team building is so key. I know I've said that a million times, but it's so important. But again, thank you to everyone for joining us today. This has been an awesome conversation. I always get very excited about these types of conversations because I know how important it is to be seen and to be heard, especially when it comes to autism. Definitely check us out at hollyrod.org and the work that we're doing. I would love one day to come see you guys in person. So hopefully we can make that happen and come down and check it out.
Well, you are simply amazing. We would welcome you here in Nashville and MNPS with open arms. Hopefully we can make that happen. And, speaking of team, I must say on behalf of all of the educators, all of our support leaders, on behalf of our Board of Education, just a team here, we refer to ourselves as Team MNPS. On behalf of the entire team, thank you so much for taking out time of your busy schedule to speak to us. And I know this started out as a conversation, but you have really just inspired us this evening. Again, as we come back to school on Monday, I know that the fire is under us to get this right and to continue to advocate on behalf of all of our students. We'll be checking out your books. We'll be checking out the foundation. Everyone, let's just get together. Let's come together. Let's get involved and make sure we're getting this thing right. Holly, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And everyone, have
you.
an excellent evening.